The 10,000-year-old man speaks. William Hovey Smith, professional geologist. This is professional geologist Hovey Smith. Right now I am in southern Alabama, and I'm sorry I cannot join you in Vienna, but scheduling conflicts prohibited it. What basically I have to say is to take a longer-term perspective. We humans live only about 100 years. Seen from the point of view of the 10,000-year-old man, climate change is something that occurs pretty frequently. We have had glaciers down to the mid-continental regions of the U.S. within the last 10,000 years. Only 10,000 years ago, all of Central Europe was covered with an ice sheet similar to Greenland's. Woof! Not only that, but sea levels change on the orders of hundreds of feet. Wow! In North America, we have had the Nebraskan, Kansan, Illinoisan, and Wisconsin glacial advances and subsequent retreats. We are now in an interglacial period, yes, and our climate is warming and may or may not continue to do so. We cannot control climate. Can we impact it? Can we affect it? Yes, probably so in a minor way. But the general progression of climatic change is that sea levels will rise and fall, and during the interglacial periods, we may see ultimately the Amsterdam Reef and the Antwerp Shoals, which will be all that remains of these cities once they are flooded. Well, if that isn't radical enough, we will also see great changes in the interior of Africa, in the interior of the Eurasian continent, and in the interior of North America, where these lands will become more fertile, more well-watered than they are now, just as they were in almost the historic past. Yeah. So climates do change, species become extinct. This is not anything at all unusual. In addition, we also have punctuated regular catastrophic events, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, meteor hits. Yeah, all these kind of things go on all the time. And we may see only a few of these in our lifetime. But yes, they have occurred, they will occur. We also have an unknown coming up pretty quick, and that is a magnetic reversal. A complete reversal of the Earth's magnetic field. We about do, by the way. So look out for that one. All right. Well, what can man do if he cannot control the climate? If he cannot control these catastrophic events, what can he do? Well, he can certainly reduce the load of pollution that he puts out in the atmosphere, in the soils, and other places. One thing that will be necessary is to produce more soils that you may grow products on throughout the world, and even in cities themselves. One little experiment I did was on a cemetery plot on my home county in Georgia, and we sieved some of this soil and we successfully grew plants from it. Now, there is a danger here, and that is, in Europe, these cities have been sources of pollution for centuries now. They have weathered, in some cases, 2 world wars. They have received impacts of millions of pounds of explosives. There have been pollutants scattered hither, thither, and yon. And although it is entirely possible to take this residue from the earth and actually grow things out of it, you don't know what the toxic load is. I'm also a geochemist in the sense that I deal in heavy metals and heavy metal transport. So the heavy metals associated with various sources of pollution throughout Europe are in the ground. They can't disappear. They are elementals, so we can't destroy them. They're still there. So if you take these and you plant crops in them and they grow, yes, you will get these pollutants in the crops. Although the plants may thrive, the fruit may be toxic or have a heavy load of pollutants that you do not want to ingest. Therefore, while it is entirely possible to take salvaged soil from cities and use these for ornamental use, for growing trees and shrubs and, cleaning up the air and beautification, making green spaces, for the growing of crops for human consumption, hydroponics is a better way to go in many cases. Now, I was in China recently, and you'll see some slides of a very elaborate, interesting, and involved hydroponic experimental farm. And this is in Jinling province. This is actually the province north of North Korea. So by China standards, this is pretty far north. And nonetheless, they successfully grew plants that were tropical and subtropical species, as well as a very wide variety of vegetables. Now, it is entirely possible that if you have a structure like a parking garage, which already is very stoutly constructed, to put a hydroponic garden on the top. No reason why not. So these are sources of foodstuffs that can be grown even within a metropolitan area. And more of this sort of activity should be done. Such things are already being done on an individual basis in China, in India, and in other areas of intense population. Many Chinese families in the largest cities, at the very least, they'll have a few pots of something growing for their use. So they don't have to buy absolutely everything. And this sort of trend will undoubtedly continue. So this is one way to make urban areas more sustainable. But it should be kept in mind that these efforts are temporary, they're short-term, impermanent, just as we all are. And ultimately, more research, more development, and more cost will be associated with human food production. It may become a very scarce commodity, but we must adapt, as we always have, relocate, yes, or perish. The following is a brief extract from this video concerning cleaning cemetery plots, where I actually recover a soil. This is the cemetery itself. The plot I'm cleaning is immediately behind me, and it has marble chips on a concrete base. Now, what has occurred is that particulates like grass clippings, dust, bird droppings, etc., have accumulated in this plot over the decades. Consequently, it grows weeds rather freely. So what I'm doing is removing the fine particulates, and here I have heaped up the mass, and the block out areas that you see are pre-cut spots, pre-cut areas for future burials. And here you see I've cleaned half the plot, or at least mounded it up, and we're now about to proceed seriously with the sieving process. Now, the screen is just a piece of hardware cloth over an inclined frame that you see and mounted on wheels, so it is portable. And here we have screened it, and this is the first pass. As you see, there's still some pretty coarse material in there. So like most mineral processing, we go through a secondary screening as well, so that we remove the larger particles and recover the fines. Now here I'm examining the soil. It actually is about 30% by analysis calcium carbonate by the time I get through with it. And once we recovered the soils, we heated them to sterilize them so we could use them for potting material. And here we have our trays and plantings, and the plants are starting to sprout, and here they are undergoing full development. So yes, this worked. Now we're in China, and we are an experimental ag center. Now they have an exterior area as well where you see these huge pumpkins, but the real feature of the center is an interior hydroponic garden that you see here. Now this is several acres in size, and they grow a great variety of plants, both agricultural and ornamentals. So although this is an exhibition area, as shown here by these seed-built deer and mountain of ginger roots, this illustrates what can be done in metropolitan areas with the application of hydroponic techniques. This could be a commercial scale operation. Hydroponic farming offers a reasonable alternative for growing crops even in highly polluted cities. So this is one way to have a sustainable lifestyle in an urban environment.